In 8th grade, I started doing chess club just because I didn't want to go home right away. It actually grew on me after a few times there, and I made friends with some of the other kids. The club met in the school library twice a week, with mismatched boards scattered across tables and a volunteer coach named Mr. Harlan who smelled like old coffee. He was in his 50s, quiet but encouraging, and he'd pair us up for games while explaining basic strategies. I wasn't great at first, but I picked up openings and endgames, and soon I looked forward to those afternoons. One day, a new kid joined named Derek. He was taller than most of us, with a sharp stare that lingered too long on the board during games. He said he'd played online for years and crushed everyone in his old school. My first match against him ended quickly. He trapped my king in a corner with his knight, delivering what's called a smothered mate. It's when the king gets checkmated by a knight but can't escape because its own pieces block every square around it. Derek explained it afterwards, his voice low and steady, like he savored the defeat more than the win. "See how your pawn sealed it? No way out." I nodded, unsettled by how he kept glancing at me instead of the pieces. Over the next weeks, Derek stuck close during club. He'd hover near my games, muttering suggestions, and after school he'd wait by the bike racks, asking if I wanted to play more at his house. I brushed him off at first, but he persisted, texting me positions late at night from an app we all used. One evening, I agreed to go over just to stop the messages. His place was a small apartment on the edge of town, dim and cluttered with chess books stacked on every surface. No parents around, he said they worked nights. We set up in his room, and he pulled out an old wooden board, insisting on a timed game. Halfway through, things shifted. Derek leaned forward, his eyes fixed on mine as he moved his knight again, setting up another smothered mate. "You're trapped now," he said, but he wasn't smiling. The room felt smaller, the air thicker with that musty book smell. I lost and shook his hand, and said I had to head home. Honestly, at that point, I was just glad to be leaving. But as I grabbed my bag, he blocked the door casually, asking about my family, where I lived exactly, and what routes I took walking back. His questions came fast and probing, and when I tried to leave, he stepped closer, mentioning how he'd watched me after club a few times to make sure I got home safe. My stomach twisted, and panic began to set in. Finally, I pushed past him and hurried out, heart pounding all the way down the stairs. I blocked his number when I got home, but the texts kept coming from new accounts. They were chess puzzles at first, then photos of my street. There were even some of my house from across the road. I told Mr. Harlan this the next day, and he pulled Derek aside, but the kid denied everything, claiming it was just friendly rivalry. The club continued, but Derek's stares grew colder, and he'd whisper during breaks about how easy it was to corner someone who didn't see the moves coming. One afternoon, after everyone left, I stayed to pack up boards and found the library door locked from outside. Derek emerged from behind a shelf, board in hand, saying we had unfinished business. He set it down, pieces arranged in that same smothered mate position, and advanced slowly, blocking my path to the exit just like his knight had on the board. I yelled for help, banging on the glass until a janitor heard and unlocked it. Derek vanished before anyone arrived, but police got involved after that. They found his apartment empty, parents long gone, and his online history full of searches on tracking people, restraining them without marks. Turns out he'd been expelled from his last school for stalking another player, escalating from games to threats. I quit chess club soon after, but even now, years later, I check my locks twice and avoid dimly lit rooms. Sometimes, late at night, I still see that board in my mind, the king hemmed in by its own side, no escape in sight. I was on the chess team in high school. I wasn't one of the best players ever, and I didn't consider myself a nerd. It was just low-key fun and relaxing. Our team sponsor, Mrs. Beth, was an old geometry teacher who I don't think was super into chess either, but just liked working with extracurriculars. We'd practice in her classroom after school, pushing desks together for boards, and she'd wander around offering vague tips from a beginner's guide she'd picked up. Tournaments were the highlight though, driving to other schools on weekends, facing off against kids who took it way more seriously than we did. During junior year, we hosted a regional event in our gym. That's where I met Alex from a school across town. He was skinny, with glasses that slid down his nose constantly, and he carried a custom chess clock like it was precious cargo. We got paired in the second round. The game dragged on. I had a slight edge in the middle game, but he fought back hard. Toward the end, he maneuvered into a position called Zugzwang. It's where every possible move you make puts you in a worse spot, forcing you to weaken your defense no matter what. My king was exposed, pawns locked, and anything I did opened a path for his rook. "You're in Zugzwang now," he said quietly, adjusting his glasses as I stared at the board. Eventually I decided he was right, and resigned after a few turns, shook his hand, and that was that, or so I thought. However, Alex started showing up at our practices uninvited. He'd sit in the back of Mrs. Beth's room, watching silently, then approach me afterward with analysis of my games. "You could have avoided that Zugzwang if you'd sacrificed earlier," he'd say, pulling out a notebook filled with diagrams. At first, it seemed helpful, like he was just passionate about chess. But he kept coming, even when Mrs. Beth asked him to leave since he wasn't on our team. He'd wait outside the school instead, catching me in my car with more notes, insisting we replay positions over coffee. I politely declined, but he texted me constantly, first about chess apps, then personal stuff, like asking about my schedule or where I hung out on weekends. Things escalated at the next tournament. Alex was there, of course, and after I won my match, he cornered me in the hallway. His voice dropped low as he described how Zugzwang applied to real life. Sometimes you're forced into moves that ruin everything, no escape. He handed me a folded paper with my home address scribbled on it, along with times I left the house that week. My pulse raced. I backed away and told Mrs. Beth, who reported it to the organizers. They escorted him out, but that night, my phone blew up with anonymous calls, heavy breathing, and whispers about chess traps. I changed my number, but Alex found ways around it. He'd email from burner accounts with photos of my car in the school lot, annotated like a chessboard with arrows pointing to weak points. One evening, after practice, I found my tires slashed in a pattern that mimicked pawn structure. Police got involved when he started following me home. They tracked him down at his place, walls covered in printed games, mostly mine, and a journal detailing how he'd forced me into friendship. It turns out he'd been banned from 2 other teams for similar obsessions, escalating to threats when ignored. The restraining order helped, but I quit the team senior year. Now, whenever I see a chess set, I remember that helpless feeling of Zugzwang, wondering if one wrong move could have changed it all. Let me start by saying I'm not a big chess player. However, this one kid in our dorm named Mike brought out a chess set one time, and this other guy Steve started playing because we literally had nothing better to do. It was freshman year in college, a rainy weekend, and the power flickered from the storm outside. Mike set up the board on the common room table, and Steve jumped in first, claiming he dominated his high school chess club. I watched from the couch at first, but Steve pulled me into a game after Mike lost badly. He checkmated me in 4 moves with what's called scholar's mate, queen and bishop lining up early to trap the king while the opponent develops poorly. "Classic beginner trap," Steve said, resetting the pieces without asking if I wanted another round. From there, Steve turned chess into a dorm obsession. He dragged the set out every night, challenging anyone awake, and he'd win most games, explaining tactics afterwards in this intense, unblinking way. I played him a few more times, always falling for similar quick mates, and he'd laugh it off but jot notes in a small black book he carried. Mike and a couple others got better though, and started beating him occasionally. That's when Steve's mood shifted. He'd stare at the board long after a loss, muttering about unfair openings, and how real strategy involved controlling the whole environment. One night, after Mike pulled off a solid win, Steve packed up quietly and left. The next morning, Mike woke up sick, vomiting, dizzy, barely able to stand. We figured it was bad cafeteria food, but then another guy, Raj, who checkmated Steve the day before, slipped in the shower and cracked his elbow. Coincidences, we thought, until I overheard Steve in the hall whispering to himself about sacrificing pawns to open lines. I shrugged it off, but then my own game against him went long. I almost had him cornered, but he flipped it with a discovered check. Afterward, he leaned in close. "See how one move exposes everything? Life's the same. Push the right piece and the king falls." Things only got weirder from there. Mike's illness dragged on. Doctors said possible poisoning from something ingested. Raj found his shower gel tampered with, slick residue added to make it slippery. I started avoiding Steve, but he'd knock on my door late, board in hand, insisting on one more game to settle scores. I even locked him out once, and the next day my laptop glitched. Files were deleted, including a big assignment. Campus IT said it looked like targeted malware from a shared network. I decided to confront Steve in the common room, demanding he back off. He just smiled and began setting up the board again. Scholar's Mate isn't the only way to end it quick. Sometimes you build slowly and isolate the target. That's when I pieced it together. His black book wasn't just chess moves. Flipping through it when he stepped away, I saw dorm layouts sketched like boards. Our names were written as pieces, Mike and Raj marked as removed, arrows pointing to my room as the endgame. He'd been spiking drinks and rigging accidents, all to eliminate opponents who challenged him. I ran to the RA and showed the book, and campus security hauled Steve away that night. It turned out his room was full of bottles, laxatives, oils, even code snippets for viruses, plus printed articles on undetectable sabotage. It turns out he'd been kicked out of his high school for poisoning a rival player's water during a tournament, obsessed with never losing control. Charges stuck and he got expelled, but I transferred dorms anyway. Even now, I can't look at a chessboard without scanning the room for hidden threats, wondering who might be plotting their next move. I have this strange childhood memory of playing chess with my sister when we were both kids. There was this strange aura about it, like a storm was rolling in. We were both stuck inside on a weekend. I'm not sure why we decided to play chess as opposed to do something else, but maybe it was because we were bored of the other games too. Our parents were out most days, leaving us to fend for ourselves in that creaky old house. The board was a hand-me-down from our uncle, pieces chipped and worn, set up on the kitchen table under a buzzing fluorescent light. My sister, Lena, was 2 years older and always took white, moving first with deliberate precision. She'd hum softly during her turns, eyes narrowing on the squares. I lost every time at first, fumbling pawns while she built attacks. One afternoon, she set up a trap I'd never forget, Legal's Mate. It's a quick sequence where you seem to sacrifice your queen, but really it's a decoy. The opponent captures it, exposing their king to a knight and bishop checkmate in just a few moves. "Got you," she whispered as her knight delivered the final blow. She explained it casually, resetting the board before I could process the loss. Game stretched longer after that. Lena insisted on playing until one of us quit, and she'd get agitated if I gained ground. Once, when I captured her rook, she dug her nails into my arm under the table, drawing blood without a word. I yelped, but she just shushed me, saying focus on the board or it'd get worse. Our parents dismissed the scratches as rough play when they got home. Nights blurred together, she'd wake me for midnight matches, locking the door so I couldn't leave. Her wins piled up, each ending with that same mate variation, her face inches from mine as she declared checkmate. I blocked most of it out as I grew up, moving away for college while Lena stayed home, drifting through odd jobs. We lost touch until last year when a news alert popped up, woman arrested for embezzlement scheme. It was Lena. She'd worked at a small firm, siphoning funds by faking invoices, luring executives into bad deals that looked safe, then pulling the rug out when they committed. The article detailed how she isolated targets, built trust, then struck, much like baiting a queen sacrifice. Police found her apartment filled with chess sets, positions marked on walls mirroring her scams. I visited her in county jail, separated by glass. She smiled through the phone receiver, asking if I remembered our games. Legal's Mate was always my favorite. Offer something valuable, watch them grab it, then close the trap. Her voice stayed calm as she described how she'd applied it to real people, ruining lives for the thrill of control. When I asked why, she leaned forward. "You were practice, and I'm not done yet." Guards ended the visit, but her letters started arriving, diagrams of unfinished games, hints at accomplices outside. Authorities investigated and found evidence of her directing thefts from behind bars, using coded messages in those chess notations. She's serving time now, but I shred every envelope unopened, knowing one wrong response could pull me back into her endgame.